because everybody wants what they want in 2 days or less, preferably as intensely as it can. Nobody really seems to pay that much attention to ramifications, to consequences, to side effects, and so on. And at the end of the day, everything has a side effect. Well, let me do 3 months, let me do 6 months, let me do 9 months, and you haven't stopped. And now, your lipid profile has changed. Now your cardiovascular risk profile has changed because you haven't bothered to look. You haven't bothered to arm yourself with the requisite knowledge. What's up, everybody? Welcome to No Limits with Dr. Thierry Jacquemin. I am your host, Dr. Jacquemin. We're going to talk today about a dirty, misunderstood situation related to the excesses of anabolic steroids and the excesses of growth hormone, okay? I'm no prude, right? But we're going to talk specifically, we're going to talk a little bit about the differences between hormone supplementation and steroid abuse, okay? Very, very different situations. I'm no prude. What do I mean by that? I mean, I'm not sitting here judging if you're using anabolic compounds, if you're using synthetic compounds, everything in its right place, right? I'm a firm believer in personal choice, in maximizing performance, so long as you're doing it correctly and so on. The point is you have to, as I always say, you have to know where you're stepping, right? So the more information you have, the more qualified you are to make your choices, right? Simple as that. So the first thing that a lot of people get wrong is, testosterone replacement is one thing, right? We're talking about dealing with hormone that is inherently present in your body, right? So we're talking about using bioidentical hormones. We talk about hormone replacement, at least if you talk about it correctly. And then we're talking about, yes, optimizing those numbers and those levels, but fundamentally keeping key hormones that your body naturally produces and keeping them within physiologic range, right? Within the range of a normal human being, right? We're not talking about making you into a cyborg or into a rhinoceros. We're basically just saying optimize for what you have using hormones that you naturally should be producing. That's one thing. The world of abuse related to anabolic compounds, related to growth hormone compounds, and so on is a completely different facet. Again, I'm not sitting here admonishing anybody, right? I'm saying do it as safely as you can, but also understand what it is that you're doing, right? Let's face it, we live in a culture of excess, right? So the tendency is always there. Human nature is always there to say, well, if a little bit helps me, then a lot more will help me a lot more. That isn't always the case, right? Like with most compounds, and again, this is going to be, this is sort of like an intro, right? We're going to be launching a series where we talk about some of the specifics related to some of the synthetic compounds. We're going to talk about all the stuff that a lot of you guys have been asking me about related to, all the different synthetics and oxandrolone and masterone and all the stuff that you want to know about. For now, I just want to give you a little trickle, right? So you sort of awaken your brain a little bit that, first of all, it's not all the same. Every single compound has its profile of good and bad. Every single compound has pros and cons, right? So that's the idea. I tell to everybody on a daily basis, I talk to patients about this kind of stuff. And I say, listen, at the end of the day, you're an adult. I believe that adults should be able to make as many useful, smart decisions as they can, but you can only make a good decision if you're informed. You should inform yourself first and foremost. So why do I say that we're in a culture of excess? Because everybody wants what they want in 2 days or less, preferably as intensely as it can. Nobody really seems to pay that much attention to ramifications, to consequences, to side effects, and so on. And at the end of the day, everything has a side effect, right? Think about the most basic consequence from the most basic thing, right? You drink a glass of water. Drinking water is good for you. You're still going to have to get up and you're still going to have to go to the bathroom to go pee. Same idea. Everything is going to have a good side and it's going to have a bad side. I'm in Miami, right? I live in Miami. I practice in Miami. Miami is the epitome of the culture of excess, right? Everybody wants everything that is bigger, better, harder, bigger, better, harder on a daily basis, right? and that has some complications. We can all, I'm not going to name any names, but everybody, has seen some of the complications, for example, of growth hormone use. Let's talk about that, right? Not to single anybody out, but, there's some people in, Hollywood, for example, right, that has sort of gone overboard with this. And then you see them today and you compare photos of 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and you say, my God, their hands are bigger, their heads are bigger, their skulls have grown. Same idea. How can you take something that in small doses can actually be very beneficial if you go overboard? Because human beings are human beings, right? So a human being goes home, classic scenario, right? And you say, well, 1 unit of growth hormone a day is really good for health and wellness. So, people go home and they look and they say, well, 1 unit a day is pretty good. I wonder what 2 units will do. Let me do that for a couple of weeks. 2 weeks go by and, 2 units was pretty good. Why don't I try 8 units? And then, you can see where this is going, right? Eventually you're using, 30 units every day. And now, you need a different size hat and your glove size has grown and your feet are wider. And, it's not only is not a good look, but obviously there's health concerns with that stuff, right? So that's just one thing, right? We see that very much with synthetic anabolic steroids, for example, right? People will say, well, let me do, 8 weeks of this and this because I want to get to this and this goal. Then you get to this and this goal and you say, you know what, 8 weeks is pretty good, but maybe if I do another 3 months, even better. So you've done another 3 months of it. Okay. Then you get a little closer, or maybe you get a little bit deeper in, and then you say, well, that was pretty good, but what if I triple the dose and I add this thing to it, and now I go another 6 months? Before you know it, it's 6 years and you haven't stopped and you haven't done this. And oh, by the way, you haven't checked yourself. You haven't had any blood work done. You don't know what the hell you're doing anymore. You're basically just running on this perpetual treadmill, so to speak, right? But you don't know what's actually helping. Again, I'm going to say it one more time. I'm not sitting here as a prude telling you that you should do nothing. That decision belongs to you. It doesn't belong to me. What you do and don't do, what you choose to do and not do, depends on your goals, depends on your objectives, depends on how you're trying to live, how you're trying to perform, whatever it is that you're trying to do. That is not for me to judge. That is not for me to decide. All I'm saying is you have to make the best decisions possible. And you can only make the best decisions possible if you arm yourself with the right knowledge, okay? That's one clear example. We see that very much obviously with a lot of the synthetic, so-called designer steroids, right? We see that a lot with oxandrolone. Oxandrolone is very much used and abused. So for starters, a lot of the stuff that's out there on the black market that you're told is oxandrolone, and this applies for all the other synthetics, isn't what you think it is, right? I've seen very clear patterns of that. A lot of, I've seen that through clients, to patients. People get stuff tested, and then it turns out it wasn't even the original compound. But let's just assume that it is, right? People will go on it for 6 weeks, and they say, well, 6 weeks, that's pretty good, this and that. But, then you say, well, let me do 3 months, let me do 6 months, let me do 9 months, and you haven't stopped. And now, your lipid profile has changed. Now your cardiovascular risk profile has changed because you haven't bothered to look. You haven't bothered to arm yourself with the requisite knowledge. So educate yourself. Follow our channel because you're going to be getting a lot more specifics. You're going to be doing, sort of like short master classes on a lot of these things, so you can really have the full knowledge that you need to be making better decisions. That's all that we're trying to give here. We're not advocating for anything. We're not advocating for anything. We're just saying if you're going to make decisions, make them with the best information that you have available. I encourage you to like this video, to share it with as many people as you can, to subscribe to our channel. Even if you hate it, share it and subscribe. Share it because hopefully somebody else will get something out of it. I also want to take the time and thank our sponsors, Smart Invest, Power Boost, LUXE Galore Studios, Junglehouse Studios. I will see you here very soon. We're posting a lot of content that hopefully will breed this community. If you have any feedback, if you want to interact with me directly, send me messages. I'll do my best to reply to all of it, and let's engage people. See you soon.